we'll get going. So welcome everybody to the next session of our live streams with people from the industry. Once again, joined by Andrew Watson down in London. How are you tonight, Andrew?
There we go, I'm off mute. Yeah, I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah,
Living a dream.
Absolutely. And also delighted to be joined by John Little, who's the CEO and Master Distiller from Smooth Ambler. How are you tonight, John?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. To open up, I guess, John, if you want to take it away and give us a little bit of history about the distillery and explain some of your role there, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Tell me when to interject when you want me to shut up. I love to talk about myself, so
that's good.
Yeah. So my name is John Little. I am the head distiller. I call myself the head distiller, not the master distiller. I don't think I've earned that title yet. I'm the CEO, which seems a little pretentious. I used to just be the vice president, but when we sold part of our business a couple years ago, I became the CEO. We started this business in 2010. My father-in-law and I were in a separate business, in another business, and we didn't neither one of us had any real distilling background, any sort of background in the business whatsoever. I was in the bar and restaurant business for about 15 years, and that's pretty much the extent of the experience that I had. In 2008, we were looking to create something in West Virginia to showcase what we love about where we live. So we live in the middle of kind of a nowhere area in a state that doesn't have many people. The population of all of West Virginia is about 1.8 million people. It's a pretty big state, but just not many folks here. And so we looked to showcase what we loved about being here. Really wonderful people, really great climate here. We've got 4 distinct seasons, which turns out for whiskey's making is pretty good. Got clean water, clean air, and it's affordable to build here. And so we looked at all sorts of things, whether it was going to be making furniture or making clothes. We looked at doing a customer service center, a call center here. And we looked at a bunch of them. And in March of 2008, my father-in-law saw an article on Time Magazine or in Time Magazine on the growth of the craft distilling movement. And it was talking about, as it turns out, Tunneltown Spirits at that time. And he wrote a little smart-ass comment in the upper right-hand corner of that article and said, "We can do this in your garage." And he put it into my box at work. And I immediately read the article, thought it was really cool, did some research on it. And about 10 days later, there was a conference in Louisville, an ADI conference, which is the American Distilling Institute. And again, at the time, I didn't know anything about it. The timing just turned out to be perfect. So whatever, 10 days, 14 days later, we went to that distilling conference. And I think at the time it was about 265 people at the conference. Now it's about 1,600 people, I think, show up to it. And we toured a couple distilleries, including Maker's Mark. And then we toured Vendome, who, for those that don't know, make all of the stills for all of the big distilleries in Kentucky, and then lots of other things across the country. And when I was inside of Vendome, I knew that this would be what I did for the rest of my life. And that really set us off on the path of what we're doing now. So we read as much as we could read. After that, I looked at the time, it was really hard to find technical journals, things of that nature. So I read everything that I could find. I printed all of the regulations from the TTB, the folks that control the alcohol regulations in America. Everything, read all of that stuff, highlighted all those things, and then put a business plan together. Probably about May of 2009. It was kind of done, and we thought we had some experience. Thought we had enough education to begin down the road, I guess. Put a business plan together, and in June, I think I sent that to a friend of my father-in-law. It's a guy who he had done some work for in the past. We were looking to raise $1 million in capital by getting 20 or 50 people to invest $20,000 a piece. he said, 2 weeks later, he sent me a message back and said, I love the business idea. I love the business plan. I think you're a fool to look for 50 investors. You should let me be all 50. And so we were like, okay, twist my arm. And that's really what started our business. So we broke ground by the end of July, I guess, maybe the first week of August. And then we had a building up in March of 2010. So nearly 2 years, almost exactly 2 years after we had the idea, we were producing alcohol. And when we started, we were making vodka and gin on a little 175 gallon, so a 650 liter, about that 650 liter pot still. And we were making vodka and gin, and we're making whiskey whenever we could. We had one mash tank, 2 fermenters, and we cooked 2 mashes a week, something like that. And that was our business. So because the great thing is you all know from a lot of people who start up craft distilleries, making vodka and gin is great because you make the spirit today and you, in theory, can sell it tomorrow. And that's what we did for a long time. We did that for a long time. We did that for, that was the plan for a long time, planned for 2 years. And then of course, we made it for about a year and a half, running just like that. In 2011, we realized that we weren't big enough to produce efficiently, even on a small scale. So we bought another still. And I went to Vendome in Kentucky, looked at the still that I wanted to buy, made some changes based off of what they had there on the floor. And it turns out when I was there, I was introduced to a guy named Richard Wolf. And Richard Wolf is a guy who was the vice president at Buffalo Trace and used to sit on the Kentucky Distillers Association, and the guy's been around a while, and he's really wonderful. And he introduced us to sourced whiskey, and that was something that we really didn't know about. I didn't even really know that there was a thing that people were out there doing. And we did some research on that and learned a little bit about what that business was about. And as you all know, at least at that time in America, pretty much everybody that was doing it was lying about it. And the people who were setting the example were the Scotch independent bottlers. So we called our distributor at the time, who ran a portfolio called Craft and Estate. And everything in the portfolio was 100% about grain to glass, handmade, doing it is small farm type thing. That's kind of what their whole premise was, all about the craft. And so I called them up and said, hey, look, we've got this crazy concept. We've got some whiskey we think is delicious, and we can get it affordably. We can put it in a bottle affordably, and we don't make it, but we want to tell everybody the truth that we don't make it. Can you sell it? And he said, yeah, I think so. And that started out on the Old Scout program. And the first time we bought barrels, we bought 40 barrels of Old Scout. It was 5 years old, 36% rye, so 60% corn, 36% rye, 4% malted barley. We bottled it at 99 proof, and we age stated it 5 years. And that was the very first thing we ever did under the Old Scout portfolio. And it was a huge hit, as you all know. So we started off with 40 barrels, and then we went to 80 barrels, and then we went to 120 barrels. And then our investor, this same investor, a guy named Greg said, I think I've seen enough. And we bought 3,800 barrels of whiskey, something like that. And then over the years, we thought of Old Scout. We were still making some vodka and gin and making a little bit of whiskey, but Old Scout was kind of blowing up. It was blowing up. And over the years, we were finding, for the first couple of years rather, we were finding some really cool products. So we were seeing, we sourced Old Scout rye, a 7-year-old rye. We sourced a 10-year-old low rye version, so 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley, and we had Old Scout 10. So then we had 3 Old Scout products, and we sourced a product, because we're such brilliant marketers. I'm saying that completely smart ass. We're such awful marketers. We had this really old product that we sourced from MGP, just 21 barrels of it. That was between 11 and 21 years old. So we called it Very Old Scout. And that's kind of what we started with as our first, like, really kind of high end release. And that business just exploded. And we unfortunately, I made a series of mistakes, which maybe I'll talk about in a minute, but that business completely grew. I grew up in a really tiny house, single family. Just my mom raised us. Lived in a little tiny house, a 3-bedroom, but tiny house. And I couldn't imagine that 3,800 barrels would take us only a couple of years to sell. I thought it was a lifetime of whiskey. Turns out it's about 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So we bought whiskey during that time under Old Scout, and we kept thinking that we would have access to more, not because we didn't know what was going on in the market, but because we kept thinking there were some deals that were getting ready to happen. We kept having some close deals that would happen where we thought we would get access to more barrels that never materialized. So in 2016, we've grown all these brands up, these three marks up. And in 2016, we had to stop selling all of them, right? So you take you take whatever 75, 80% of your business, and you stop selling all of it in a period of about 6 months. As Michael, who just chimed in here a little while ago, could tell you, it's a really, really awful business plan to do that. So very, very, very awful thing that happened to us. So back up just a little bit. In 15, I tasted a product, 14 or 15, I tasted a product called the Heaven Hill Master Distiller's Blend of Mash Bills, and I loved it. It was a fabulous product, is a fabulous product. Haven't had it in a while. And it's a blend, from what I understand, it's a blend of a wheated bourbon and a bourbon made with rye, some really older product. And so we said, hey, look, I wonder if we could do that of our own thing. I loved it so much. So we played around with our wheated bourbon, which at the time was only about 2 years old, and with the bourbons made with rye from MGP, which is where we were sourcing almost all of our stuff. So we played around with that. We worked on some blends for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months. We narrowed those down to some I think 3 that we really liked, and then sent those 3 to some people that we respect, both people that's their job, a lady named Nancy Fraley, they call her Nancy the Nose, who's a sensory analysis person, and then just people whose palate that we respect, and people who also don't blow smoke up our ass, right? They tell us exactly what they think. And everybody liked the same blend. And that's what so then we started blending Contradiction. So then we had kind of the stuff that we make, the stuff that we source, and then the combination of those two. And there were a lot of people that said, oh, they're doing it because they think their own product is terrible, or they want to extend the life of Old Scout, or whatever it is. That gives us too much credit for thinking about that. It was just something fun that we wanted to do. And that's kind of where Contradiction came about. So Contradiction happened in 14 or 15. It started to grow. In 16, we stopped selling Old Scout. And then some of you know that in 2017, we sold the majority interest in our business to Pernod Ricard. So January 31st of 2017, we sold the majority interest to Pernod. And then we started doing both of the things, all 3 of the things that we were doing, and we started doing that more than ever. So people said, hey, when you sell this business, are you going to stop sourcing whiskey? Never. I've never had any desire to stop sourcing whiskey. I love doing it. I love going out and finding really cool things. It's taken on a kind of a different life than maybe exactly what I intended it to do, which was kind of like antique shopping for whiskey. And now it's a brand that's actually established that needs a lot of planning underneath it to support it. So anyway, we're buying more whiskey than we've ever bought. We're mingling more whiskey, or marrying more whiskey than we've ever done. And then we're making more. We went from mashing twice a week for vodka and gin to doing it about 4 times a week to doing it, I think 10 times a week. And now we cook 5 mashes a day, 7 times, we run 24/7. So we make 35 mashes every week. At least we actually get a little bit more than that. We get like 5.2 mashes as the clock runs, but so that's kind of what we do. And we make about 300 barrels of bourbon every month, and that's pretty much a little bit of a recap of where our business has been. I will back up and say one thing. Those deals kept falling through to secure more barrels of Old Scout. In 14, we finally wised up, and when we had the funds, we would buy new make. So you can source whiskey really two ways. You can buy it under spot purchase, which is existing, already aged product, or you can get it at new make contracts. So we bought it at new make contracts in 14. So we bought the capacity right off of the still in 2014, and we started laying down, in essence, our own Old Scout, and we continued to do that over the next couple of years, and especially more than when we joined forces with Pernod in 2017. So we've just in the fall of 2019, we just re-released 5-year-old Old Scout. So it's the exact same thing that we originally released, and we were proud of it then. We're proud of it now. There's only one little issue, is that when we stopped selling Old Scout, because we bought such of it in a bulk early on, that product that was 7-year age dated was really like 8, 9, 10-year-old whiskey in there. So we love the 5-year-old whiskey then, we love it now, but if you compare a 7-year-old product that was bottled in 16 to a 5-year-old product that was bottled in 2019, there's a couple of years of difference, right? Which makes a lot of difference when you're comparing a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. So that's kind of one of the issues that we have with Old Scout. We've got a few issues that we've worked through and trying to be better at what we do, but that's kind of the gist of where we've been and where we are today.
So John, you're obviously you've got quite a following with the Old Scout brand, and especially within the Facebook groups. Obviously, you're a member of British Bourbon Society, and you probably see the pictures of members, with plenty of the Old Scout bourbons and ryes, the single barrel releases. We also know about the Smooth Ramblers, which you're a member of. My question to you is how important would you say these Facebook groups are or have been to your brand, you in terms of developing the Old Scout, and just what are your thoughts on that, really?
That's a great question. I think those groups have been hugely instrumental in our growth. We grew for a number of reasons, I think. I think the product was excellent. I think we got at least some notoriety for being open and honest and calling out not individuals, because we've made it a part of our business to not call out individual businesses, but to call out bullshit within the industry. And then whatever you want to call it, the early adopters, the influencers in the market, the enthusiasts, the top 5% of the bourbon drinkers in the world, those people who follow those Facebook groups, we call them the whiskey nerds, but we always said that as a badge of honor, not as a criticism. Certainly when you earn their respect, it trickles down and you start to get respect from the people who look up to those people, right? So there's a group of people who respect your opinion, Andrew, on what you think is delicious. And because of that, it influences what happens down the chain. And so they were huge for us. We tried to play an active role in it, and to be in there and to answer questions when people had a product of, what we were doing. So for a lot of that time, it's been really, really good. And sometimes it's not been so good in those groups, right? People don't like something you put out, or you feel like you've let them down or something. We've tried to be there for that too. So we didn't want to be the people that only showed up when things were good. We wanted to make sure that we were there when things weren't good, or somebody didn't like something or wasn't happy about something. And we've tried to be there to answer criticism as honestly as we can, and to be direct with folks. So, but they have been a huge part of our business. I will say one little thing. We built the business by, or at least part of it, by being attractive to that consumer. But for us to continue to grow, we don't need 20,000 people. We need 400,000 people to be doing the same thing. And there are products that every brand makes that are for the enthusiasts. And then there are products that are just for the everyday whiskey lover. I mean, I have some really, really good friends of mine that don't care to drink 12-year-old cash strength limited edition rye. right? They just want to drink whatever's 92 proof, delicious 5-year-old bourbon. And we need a lot of those customers if we want to be where we want to be. And that's to make a difference for everybody at the distillery. We try to be really, really great people in business, but we are doing this to make an income. And if we want to continue to grow that income, we've got to have people who want to drink contradiction. And that's a little bit of the issue that we have. Is that we've made our hay in this super enthusiast market, and we need, and then the average everyday consumer is maybe a contradiction consumer, but they're a different, we're really known in one group and not so well known in the everyday whiskey drinker group. And so that's something we're working on.
Yeah. So what product would you say you're most proud of?
Certainly contradiction. The most proud of, certainly contradiction. It has when we first released it, it was a 2-year-old product blended with a 9-year-old. So it's 2-year-old wheated bourbon blended with a 9-year-old low rye bourbon from Indiana. But now it is a blend of 3 bourbons. It's a blend of 4- and 5-year-old wheated bourbon from West Virginia. It's a blend of low rye bourbon from Indiana and some 12-year-old low rye bourbon from Tennessee. And that it has evolved a little bit. That juice has evolved a little bit, and it has never taken a step backwards in terms of quality. And maybe some people would say it had a ways to go in quality. But, the enthusiasts would tell you that, right? I think it's been delicious from the get-go. And other people would tell you it's been delicious, but it has never been better. And the reason why is that, first of all, we make better distillate today than we made 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, we made better distillate than we made 8-9 years ago. Because if you're not getting better at what you do today than you were 4 years ago or 4 months ago, you should do something else. And that is what we're doing. So the whiskey's getting better. The whiskey's gotten older. We're better at blending it. And I think all of those things have shown up in improved contradiction. I don't think it's ever been better, and I don't see where it will diminish in value in any ever. There's nothing that we have, that we make, that we own, that would make it worse than it is today. And I'm really excited to see how that's grown. So the most proud of, certainly that. Maybe the best compliment I ever got was probably Very Old Scout. Larry Ebersold was the master distiller or he called himself, I think, the plant manager at MGP for 25 or 30 years. And when we put out Very Old Scout, right, it was a blend of all these different age statements or all these different barrels. And then we obviously age stated for the lowest age product in the blend. He said, I made really good whiskey at MGP and you made it better. And boy, I'm going to tell you, that's about as good a compliment as you can get professionally. So
the contradiction, back to the contradiction, you mentioned about the Parker's Heritage Blend of mash bills, which is, I've tried it once at a bar in London and thought it was incredible also. Was that the profile you were going for when you were
no, I'm
blending
not sure
contradiction?
I don't think I could have. I think I'd be foolish to tell you that I could make something with 2- and 9-year-old whiskey that would. I think it was a blend of 13- and 17-year-old product. That's what I thought. I think I heard in there. So I think I'd be a fool to tell you that I was going for the same profile. We were trying to create the best product we could out of the components that we had, and looking for something that was. I hate the word, but it's the word that so many people use. We were looking for something that was sweet on the front of the palate, and that was an easy drinker, smooth, right, easy drinking product that was not, that was just enjoyable. We Old Scout 7, right, the regular Old Scout bourbon, this high rye is bold, and I like to say it's always been a cowboy whiskey, right? It's got leather and pipe tobacco, cherries, and it is a bold whiskey. And I think it's great in a lot of different ways. I drink more of it in contradiction than anything else. But I'm not sure everybody would call it an easy drinker. It's a different kind of whiskey like that. So that's what we were really looking to make. And that's what we continue to make. We don't make smoke infused whiskey, and we don't make a lot of crazy things. We don't, as the saying, right, outside the box, we don't make outside the box whiskey. We make pretty normal whiskey flavor profiles.
One last question from me. This has come up a few times in the group, and it's a constant debate. What would you say would be the optimum age of your Old Scout bourbon and rye? Because so some people are saying that 9 years, they feel that 9 years peaks for the bourbon, and same with the rye, or 7 to 8 for the bourbon, same age for the rye. What would you say for that? I mean, because I've got the 10, 11-year-old ryes as well, and they're all incredible. But do you say if there's a sweet spot for each of those for you?
Yeah, I'd say it's somewhere between 5 and 14 years old. No, I kid. I know I've seen some of those debates, right? That's, I guess, 7, 8, 9 years old is the peak, and anything after that, it's got too much wood influence in it. I think everybody's palates are so unique, and so everybody has such strong feelings about that, right? So I know I've seen from one of the people on the British Bourbon Society that like the 12-year-old limited edition rye is just too much in the sweet spot, 7 or 8 years old. But we have other people on Instagram or on direct messages on Facebook that say, this is the best whiskey I've ever tasted in my entire life, or this is one of the top 3 ryes I've ever tasted in my entire life. So all of those things, I guess everybody's so different. Personally, I think 8 to 10 is a really great spot on the high rye. I would say that one thing that we're very confident in is that the greater the percentage of rye in the mash bill, the greater the appearance of maturity at a given age. So if you took 7-year-old whiskey and you took rye whiskey, high rye bourbon, low rye bourbon, and then wheated bourbon, for instance, the one that would seem the most mature at the same age would be the rye whiskey, and the one that would seem the least mature at the same age would be the wheated bourbon. So you can put out a rye whiskey or a high rye bourbon 4 or 5 years old, tastes pretty good, but maybe a low rye or a wheated bourbon doesn't taste as mature, right? I think that spiciness in the rye masks youth. And I think we're seeing that a little bit in the opposite direction. So we bottled a 14-year-old, very old Scout last fall, I think. I guess it was early last summer. And that's the very old Scout was all low rye. Right. We also haven't done a very good job of telling everybody what's low rye, what's high rye, whatever, which we're working on now. But it is the single best thing that we've ever put into glass. Came out at cask strength at 86.4 proof, so 43.2% ABV, 14-year-old single barrel low rye bourbon, and it is absolutely. I pulled 6 cases. I don't ever take anything for myself ever. I pulled 6 cases to the side. It's the best thing we've ever bottled. It is absolutely magnificent. So that's kind of so yeah, I think 8 to 10 is a really, really, really great age.
Was that the bottle, John, that you had at the whiskey show, which nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you get a little
yes. I think that's it.
Yeah, no, that is incredible bottle. Chris, should we move on to questions from the group?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We've got a question from Max Nair, who wants to know what proportion of your juice is now sourced compared to homegrown.
Well, let me think here. Last year we did. I guess I'll tell you, I hadn't done the math, so somebody can do it real quick. For 3,300 barrels of homemade juice, and we did 2,200 barrels of source juice. So total of, I think, 3,324. So 5,500 total barrels, and 2,200 of them were sourced. And that might change this year a little bit. We'll probably, obviously, we shut down for basically a month in production because of the COVID-19. So we'll definitely lose at least 1/12 of what we did last year, maybe a little more. So my guess is this year it'll be closer to even.
Thanks. Ed Rosie, who's one of our BBS co-founders, asked an interesting question. He said, will you ever do a bottle for Sarah, maybe a special edition? She's earned it. She must have signed thousands of bottles.
Well, I can't even thousands. I was trying to think. She signed a couple of 100,000 bottles easily. She's been there since the beginning. We made a change. I'm not sure if anybody has noticed, but we made a change. Put it on our Facebook page and let everybody know, because we always try to do the right thing and let people know. But last year, at the end of maybe the beginning of this year, it's all running together now. But anyway, maybe November, December, or January, I can't remember. We switched over to printed signatures on our two most common SKUs, our two most popular. So Contradiction and then the regular Old Scout. Now they sign their name in the morning, Sarah, whatever batch number it is, and Sarah or James or Dreama sign their name, and then we digitize that, and then that gets printed across those labels. But the custom barrels that we do, the single barrel picks or custom barrels, which we've just gotten back into, they're all still done by hand. And that was for two reasons. It was for efficiency, number one, and then number two, really, I worry about somebody having overuse injuries. About 60 or 70% of our time is hand signing bottles, pick them up, sign them, wiping them down, putting them into a case. I feel like is probably, we don't need to be doing 2,000 times a day or 3,000 times a day.
I've got to tell you though, her handwriting and her signature is phenomenal. I think if I did that 3 times in a row, it wouldn't look the same.
She's amazing. Again, she's been doing it since the beginning. She really is amazing. I don't know how she's done so much of it. We're actually working on a little funny Sarah skit right now for social media. So you'll see that coming up pretty soon. We're excited about it.
Awesome. Look forward to that.
James Keats is asking, will you be releasing any more rye? I mean, I'm guessing the answer to that is yes, but maybe a question of when.
We will. So we had a release scheduled the day after we closed the tasting room for, obviously a week in advance. We are 2 weeks in advance. We had planned to do a 12-year-old limited edition rye. So single barrel limited edition rye in the tasting room only. And that obviously has been postponed indefinitely. Don't really know when we're going to do that again. And then this summer, we will do some cask strength MGP rye that's only about 4 years old, but it'll all be very affordably priced and all single barrels and all cask strength stuff. We'll do that this summer in some small ways. And then we will release some of our own house-made rye probably around the holidays. But rye will still be a small part of what we do. Maybe we'll do, I think we're going to do about 500 or 600 six-pack cases of the MGP rye in the summer.
Nice. Karan Singh asks, Dickel versus MGP for single barrels, what wins?
Well, I can't tell you that it's from Dickel. I can tell you it's from Tennessee. I think our price told you what, we don't put things out that we're not proud of. And I understand, again, for the enthusiast market, people have such strong feelings about everything. And we don't blame, I'm not sure there is a right answer or a wrong answer, no matter what it is. But at the same time, we were releasing the single barrel selects sourced from Tennessee. We were releasing 13-year-old MGP single barrels in the tasting room, product that we don't have much of. So 2 products, both 13 years old, both cask strength single barrels. The product from Tennessee was $65 a bottle. The product from MGP was $175 a bottle. So I think that tells you, right, that first of all, one of them was in very short supply and one was not. One was available. And I understand the issues that people have with Tennessee product. I don't have the same visceral reaction to it as some people do, but I actually like that product, or we wouldn't put it out. But I certainly, MGP is our sweet spot. that's where we've made our name, and of course that's where we continue to source the overwhelming majority of what we put out.
Cheers. Yeah. Just listening to that question for myself, really. Obviously, you're saying you've still got some reasonably old barrels from MGP popping up every so often. Is that part of kind of a conscious medium to long term outlook of holding some back rather than releasing them all at once? And is that it? You know, it's kind of a special treat once every so often.
It is, and we use it for obviously to drum up some business at the tasting room, right, at our visitor center. It's a big deal for people to be able to come and source or get product at the distillery. Of course, that leads to people that are just coming there so they can turn around and flip bottles illegally. And without us getting into all of that, we've taken every real step that we can to prevent that as much as possible. You know, one customer, one bottle per person per day, writing their names down, you name it. We've tried to do everything to prevent that abuse of that system. And then what we've done more recently is that we've just started to trickle those things into the tasting room randomly. The issue that comes with a release is where we had a release coming up, but we have also just been trickling things in the tasting room. And so the problem with the release is that, you know, it's really, really busy for one day, but people come from all over. And then the people who are buying bottles of Contradiction and Single Barrel Selects and buying t-shirts and hats and stuff, our regular everyday customers never get a chance to buy those cool things because they just get flooded on this on the enthusiast market. And so we've tried to occasionally just trickle some in, and it's been nice, you know. So we have some customers that come in and they think, shit, there's a bottle of 12-year-old Single Barrel Rye up there. I've never seen that before. So we've tried to do some of those things. And then we also ship some to, you know, Master of Malt every now and then, right? So that they can do the same sort of things with their customers, right? Get a little publicity and you know, and for the enthusiasts who are always looking for something new and interesting and different, so to be able to supply those folks as well. So I think it works out really, really well. The truth is we just don't have much of it. We've got enough to do maybe, I don't know, 20 more releases, something like that, 25 more releases. And then that's the end of the 12 to 14-year-old product. We've got some stuff that we're aging up. We've got some 6 and 7-year-old low rye stuff and some 5-year-old Old Scout, but nothing that's in that super range. And for some of the people, Andrew, like you were talking about earlier, that think the sweet spot's 7 or 8 years old, we're really getting ready to come into the sweet spot on some of those things. So it'll be nice.
Brilliant.
Scott Carline asks about the Pernod Ricard takeover, and he says, what impact did the Pernod Ricard takeover have on the individuality of your distillery?
You know, individuality, I don't think they've done, first of all, they can't tell us what to put out and when to put it out. We still have the decision-making ability in West Virginia. We kept that. So they don't tell us really what kind of brands we need to put out or when we need to put out a certain brand or what the blend should taste like. There's really none of that happens. So we still get to do all of that. One of the things, what they've really done, all of the good stuff that they have done has been, we make better whiskey now than we've ever made. And they've been a big help with that. They have some really great whiskey makers in their business. The one closest to us is in Hiram Walker, that's in Ontario, which I think is the largest distillery in North America. And so we send them samples 3 days a week. Well, we pull them 3 days a week and send them every 2 weeks. And then they give us feedback on those samples and they run them. We have a gas chromatograph, but theirs is more robust than ours. So they send us some detailed reports back. They have safety people in place that really help make sure that everything that we do is better. Yeast experts, maturation experts. So then they've got finance people and legal people. And so all of these wonderful things that have made us a better business. Again, we're a better business. We make better whiskey than we've ever made. And so I have some issues occasionally with, I want to do things and ask for forgiveness later on. I don't really want to follow all of the steps that sometimes it takes. They're a very careful organization. Sometimes as a small business owner, you've been less than careful in terms of basically like social media content and things like that. we're a little more free with our words sometimes, and so we're trying to be mindful of those things. But really, from an individuality, none. They don't really stop what we do. Matter of fact, they keep telling us they want us to be entrepreneurs. They want us to be small and to do things in impactful ways. So, what you hear from marketing and what you hear from legal might be a little different. That'd be the only criticism. But we like it. Look, if it's made us a better business, it enabled us to hire a lot more people, and that's been one of the big parts of what we do. We wanted to make an impact on where we live and wanted our employees to have better lives, and all the people that depend on us to be successful to have better lives, and that it's certainly improved since they've been involved. And if that's brown nosing to them, then that is what it is. But that's a big part of what we want to do. So,
yeah.
On that note, how does the export market fit into the growth strategy for Smooth Ambler?
Well, it was a part of the growth strategy until we've had these crazy trade wars recently, which I don't, not to get too political, but they're bad for everybody, as far as in the whiskey business, at least as far as I can tell. Whether you're making something in Europe and shipping it this way, or making something in America and shipping it that way, it's bad. And it's bad in pretty much everywhere I know. And it's just absolute madness. So it was a big part of it. Now it's less. It's a small part of what we do now, because we don't make as much money. We're trying to stay competitive in the market. It doesn't really work for a small brand to begin with, and especially when you put on 25% tariffs, it really doesn't work. And it's a damn nightmare, is what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm committed. No lie. One of my favorite markets in the world, maybe my favorite market in the world. I just love coming to London. I think Michael and everybody that I've met at the entire Maverick/Master of Malt team are excellent people. I've made a lot of really wonderful friends there.
You speak good English.
Right. And there's a very, I seem to connect with the people in the service industry there. And I love going there. So I'm committed to coming to London, really, because as much as I just don't want to see our hard work that we've done in the past, and to be completely selfishly, some of my hard work to be deteriorated based off of something that I can't control. So we're doing everything in our power to at least maintain what we have. So more than you wanted to know, maybe, but that's my
good answer.
I mean, look, we've known you for and of your brand for probably since our inception. So we want to be part of your growth as well. And every time you come over, you probably see it when you're at the stands. You probably get flooded by BBS members, right? I
do, and I love it. Thank you. The turnout, the turnout. When we did that, I don't know, the Bodine's. I think Bodine's Barbecue was with that place. Yep. We did the one tasting there, and then when we had the cookout this past summer and everybody came, I thought the BBS showed up with lots of great support, and the people couldn't be better. And I've really, really enjoyed it, and it's been really no different than any other part of my experience working in London. It's been fabulous. And I know it sounds like I'm kissing ass, but I'm not. I love it. Also, Michael gives me a free place to stay, so that helps.
Brilliant. Well, when you're next over in London, we'll do another event. Maybe we can have another cookout if this whole thing finishes in time for the weather to still be decent.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we got another question from Alex Gillam, who works for a company that makes fragrances. So he did a really interesting article actually a while back where he used I think a gas spectrometer to analyze some whiskey samples for one of our pieces that we put on the website. And he asks, is the grass chromatograph used as a development tool for aroma profiling blending, or is it to look for nasties to keep the product kind of street legal, he says, but I guess that also applies to making it taste good?
It's really neither one of those. I don't think first of all, it's hard to make, it would be hard to make a lot of nasties from grain production, right? As opposed to making something off of, maybe off of a fruit mash or some sort of other mash. So I don't think we have a lot to worry about with methanol and things like that. Even after the distillation process removes a little bit of that. Really, what we've done is we've used it to, what we're saying at the distillery is to assign a digital fingerprint to the product. So we run our product, and then we run lots of other products that we get there. So if we go to another distillery and we get their White Dog, we run the gas chromatograph on it, adjust for proof, right? Because all those things are at different proofs, adjust to a consistent proof. And then we see what total fusel oils are really. That's what we worry about a lot, right? So not only like the methanols, for instance, which is again minute in all whiskey products really, and then of course ethanol. But to look at isopropyl alcohol and butanol and isoamyls and so basically all the total fusels, and we get a count on that. And what we like to run every day is basically to see where we are on those total fusel oils. So it doesn't tell you everything, right? Because your nose can actually sense some things more than maybe the gas chromatograph would. And you could produce something in theory that had a lower fusel oils and still smelled, you didn't like the flavor profile of rather. So we're doing it and we've gotten pretty good at it. Matter of fact, we can tell. And then what we did last year, let me back up. What we did last year was Travis. So when we partnered with Pernod, we hired someone who is much smarter than me, which is a lot of people much smarter than me, but specifically in our distillery, we hired a guy named Travis Hammond, and he is our operations manager, and he's a chemical engineer graduated at West Virginia University, and he is very, very smart, most often the smartest person in the room. And last year he worked on a project where we adjusted one variable in mashes over a period of about 4 months. Sorry, one variable in both mashing, and then one variable in fermentation, and then one in distillation. And then we ran all of those results on a gas chromatograph to see how those variables changed fusel oils in production. And then we tried to decide, what matters and what doesn't matter, right? If you cook it, if you set your fermenter at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, or you set it at 65 degrees Fahrenheit, does it affect the fusel oils in the finished product? And so we made all of that, and then Travis put that into a big white paper, and then he put that out at ADI last year, the same conference that we went to in 2008. When we first had the idea, he actually presented that at ADI last year. And so that's what we use it for. We basically use it to establish a fingerprint, to establish a consistent product profile that we're looking for. And then if we run it and something varies off of that, so not only then would we have our organoleptic profile, right, what we nose, what we taste off of it, but then we would also say, is it different based off of the GC's profile? And I don't really know anybody doing that level of work. So anyway, one of the things I think is really neat is that we've gotten pretty good about this. And we've run a bunch of yeast trials and seen how the yeast changes fusel oils in the finished product. And one of the things that's interesting is that we can taste people's products now, craft people that we know. And I did this recently. It was so close to one of the products that we did on the yeast trial. I said, hey, you're using XYZ yeast, aren't you? And he said, how in the world did you know that? So now we can tell them, not all the time, but sometimes we can tell them what yeast they're using based off of this digital fingerprint that we have off of the GC. So that's the nerdy. I think I got most of that right. We'd have to have Travis here to be sure, but I think I got most of that right. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is very interesting and a really good answer to that question. Thanks.
And probably the nerdiest question we've had on any interview so far. So
yeah, that'll satisfy the nerds. We're coming close to the end of our time, so if we can do a couple more questions, is that okay before we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this.
Yeah, sure. So Will Knock asked, have you ever been approached to partner up by a celebrity or band for a branded whiskey or some kind of collaboration?
We haven't. I'm not sure if I'm shocked about that or if I am happy about that. I'm not really sure. We have always had this really no BS approach, shooting people like it is, telling people the truth about everything we do. It might be hard for us to for somebody to feel like they could connect to us and feel like that wasn't disingenuous to our brand. We ourselves have looked at someone to be a spokesperson for us. But I'm not sure we've seen the value, and it's expensive. And I'm not sure that we've yet seen the value in that. And we would be pretty particular about how that was done as well. Even given the fact that it might grow your business exponentially, we want to do the right thing.
I've got a question on that point. Who would you pick then, if you could pick anybody, alive or dead, to represent your brand?
So this is one of those moments where I'm not supposed to say anything because our lawyers have told us that we're not supposed to say any of this stuff.
You can't say, like, I don't know. Okay, deceased. Anybody from the past, say, like, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix or something like that.
Wow.
Can you say that?
I better not. That stuff is, I know that sounds really, really
Fair
crazy,
dues,
but
fair
yeah,
dues.
we just had an issue where we wanted to play a song. Anyway, I better be careful about that.
Clear.
No.
Next question.
Yeah, we'll wrap up with this last question, which is kind of a combination of two questions. Maybe we can roll it to one. Matt Latimer is asking about whether you prefer high rye bourbon or low rye bourbon from the MGP stock. And Max Nart again has asked, do you prefer low proof or barrel proof single barrels? But I guess, you talked before about a barrel proof that was quite low proof. So maybe, I don't know, do you prefer higher proof whiskies or lower proof whiskies?
Well, I'm going to give you like the most political answer here. I drink more high rye bourbon, and again, and more contradiction than anything we make. I love our high rye bourbon, right? That 36% rye is magic. I will say one thing. When we started sourcing whiskey, we tried like 10 different bourbons. And when Richard gave me a bottle in my office after we'd already tried whatever, maybe 9 or 10. And I opened it up and smelled that 5-year-old 36% rye, high rye bourbon, and smelled it and said, that's what I've been looking for. All right. So before we ever tasted it, I knew that's what we were buying. I love that product. I drink more of that. What I really like to do is to taste unique, really bold things. In the bourbon world, I'm not a smoke person, but I like big, bold, flavorful whiskeys. I love big, bold ryes, but I drink more of the other stuff, meaning I drink more low proof, easy drinking right there, because after we sometimes at 9 o'clock in the morning, well, every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, we set up a panel and we're paneling through all of the different spirits, whether they're new make or aged inventory, stuff for contradiction, stuff for single barrel programs, whatever. There's a panel in there. There's about 5 different people, sometimes running 2 or 3 different panels. And so you start off at 9 o'clock in the morning drinking 120 proof White Dog and then watering that stuff down. It can grow. It can be overwhelming sometimes. So again, like I said, the very old, switching a little bit, the very old Scout that we did, which was the low rye and the 86.4 proof, that's the best thing we've ever put in the bottle. One of the reasons is because it's so flavorful and so easy drinking, even at 86.4. So I want to taste the other stuff because I want to experience it, but I end up drinking more easy drinkers. So for me, a 99 proof, a bourbon and ginger ale, or a highball with high rye or contradiction and a little splash of ginger ale or a splash of water, I drink more of that because the work part of it is so much the other stuff. So I like it, want to taste it, also want to sit down and drink by the fireplace, a lot of easier drinking stuff.
Nice, thanks for that. I think what's interesting, I'm not sure if you've tried this one, the Jerry's Old Scout pick. What was interesting about what Jerry's did is they released the majority of those bottles at 46 ABV, and then a handful at cask strength. I was lucky enough to own one of each, actually. But I do prefer the cask strength, but it was also interesting to try and drink it at that lower proof. And it was still delicious at that lower proof as well. That's probably one of my favorite Old Scout picks, actually, that one.
We've probably only done that, reduce any single barrel. We've probably only done that 4 or 5 times. We did it for one bar restaurant customer that we did it for. We did it for Jerry's and maybe only 2 more. It's not much. But yeah, it was kind of certainly an easy way to compare, right? Would you have one at full strength and then the exact same barrel reduced? That would be a comparison. And I did not do that on that product. That's a little bit of a weird thing that people have asked us about. And they're like, oh, did you taste whatever? Did you taste the Jerry's barrel? Did you, XYZ? Did you taste that barrel? And I said, no. And they said, well, why not? And the reason why is because if you like it, Chris, if you pick that barrel, or Andrew, either one of y'all picked those products and you liked it, who are we to say your barrel doesn't taste good? So we don't really taste we do a lot of quality checks on everything else we do, but in the single barrels, if you like it, you picked it, we bottle it up, we make sure it's at proof, but we don't do a flavor profile check on it. That's we're not interested in doing that.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess.
Do you personally go for a particular profile on single barrels? Does your palate favor something over something else?
Yeah, it does. I frequently, when people come in doing single barrel picks, I frequently will nose through them really fast. I might take 9 samples and do it in 45 seconds, something like that. And I'm looking for pretty much cherry pipe tobacco and leather. And for whatever reason, I pull those out real quick. And so anyway, that's how we do single barrels, by the way. So we typically would line up, say 6 or 8 barrels and nose through them pretty quickly. And the ones that don't instantly hit us, push to the back, then sample, say you've got 7, now you've narrowed it down to 5. And then we'll take some time with those 5 just nosing, and then pick the 3 that nose the most that we like, and then taste the 3 and pick the 1 out of that. And that's kind of how we narrow it down. So it's like a 3-step process to get it down from 7 down to maybe 1 barrel. But I'm certainly I love leather. To me is a signature note in the Old Scout bourbon. And it is a signature note that I really enjoy in almost all mature bourbon.
You can really get that cherry from that Jerry's Old Scout pick as well that you talk about.
I have not had that one. So I know the product because I know what we did, and I know it's been talked about by BBS, but I have not had that product.
I've just had a hunt my bunk. I've got this. This is 100 proof though.
Oh yeah, dude, that's old. What year is that? 12?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's one of the medium age ones. Yeah.
14.
Wow. Oh, how'd you get that?
But is it? This isn't the 86. This isn't the one that you're.
I'll swap you.
Okay, we'll talk offline.
Yeah.
Okay, we've done just over an hour, guys. So we'll probably look to bring it to an end there. But just wanted to say thank you very much for your time tonight, John. It's been an absolute pleasure and really good chat.
Yeah, cheers, John. I know you're probably going to beast yourself in the gym now, as you said, just to earn yourself some drams. So enjoy, and thanks for your time.
Guys, thanks for everything. Appreciate the support as always. If you ever need something from me, you let me know. And to all those listening and to you all, everybody, please be safe. And when this is all over, let's have a drink together.
You too. Cheers.
Amen to that.
See you guys.
Cheers, John.
Thank you. All right. Bye.